Well, hey Cove.
Hey, Cove.
Dan Baumgartner and Anne. We're here today for our Wednesday update, and we are in our backyard on this amazing day and with this great green fig tree behind us. Hey, we didn't really know what to talk about today because there's not much going on. Just kidding. There's so much going on. One thing that Anne and I have been thinking about is once we sort of get on the other side of some of this, I'm thinking of the pandemic in particular, what might we want to take away from this time? What have we learned?
Well, one great thing that we've picked up is a lot more walking around the neighborhood. We do a lot of walking anyway, but every night after dinner, we go out again. Even if we've already had a walk or we have done a lot of exercise, we just maybe do the dishes and just put the shoes on and head out and walk around some blocks, meet some neighbors, just watchful to see what's going on. Listen to the birds, see the new flowers. I'll miss that a lot. And it's been fun to meet more neighbors. People have been outside during that time. I keep this little list in my drawer in the house. And as I meet people, I write their name down. So I have little blocks for everyone around us. And if I meet their spouse later, then I add them, or their adult kids, or their little kids. I just like to know people's names, and I don't always remember them until I get to know them. So this is my little record keeping. So that's one thing. I want to keep the walks up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
I'm going to take off. Yeah.
You're going to leave me all by myself?
Yeah.
These people are very threatening. Speaking of walking, Ann and I went down and did a prayer walk last night around Old Courthouse Square for a while before dinner. That's just about a 15-minute walk from our house. It's where a lot of the protest activities have at least started from. There wasn't much going on really when we were there, a few dozen people, but we found ourselves just circling a couple of times, praying for people, praying for our city, praying for our country. I have seen some things this week that surely have surprised me, and I'm sure you. I was stunned to watch and read about a church and a Bible being used in conjunction with the aggressive removal of peaceful protesters. That was really disheartening on so many levels, and there's just so many layers to everything going on. We've had large groups actually of protesters this week walking up each end of our block because we're kind of near the high school and the junior college. It's been a little loud, those protests, and I think pretty necessary. But I'm drawing a distinction between protesters and people looking for an opportunity to loot. I've been on a lot of conversations this week around the racial issues, the unrest in our country, and as we listen and pray together at the Cove, I think it's really important for us to keep two particular things in mind. They keep coming up. One is that and I've said this before, but we just have to understand that all of this is about far more than just one incident or two or three incidents. People are protesting a pattern, a system, not just about police brutality, but a broken justice system, generations of poverty and housing conditions, the lack of economic opportunity that have plagued people of color in our nation for generations. And because of those things, there are discernible reasons why the people of color are the ones disproportionately getting sick with COVID-19, because it connects to poverty and economics and housing and jobs and everything else. So we need to understand that all of this turmoil is not just about a couple of bad incidents. There are deep changes that need to happen, not Band-Aids. And so we're experiencing the frustration of decades and decades. So that's one thing I think we need to keep in mind. The other is that as people of faith, our motivation for change and for action needs to be rooted in the gospel. We don't advocate for change because of a general feeling or an emotion that we have, or because something is popular on this day or another day. Those things are going to come and go, but rather, as Christians, we are compelled by the gospel to be involved in these things because all people were made in God's image, all of them. Because Christ came on behalf of all people, and died on behalf of all people and gave himself and tore down the dividing wall of hostility between peoples. It's because of the gospel, not just how we feel today or tomorrow, that compels us to be part of the work of justice. That's a word which means literally the setting of things right, the setting right of things. And that means in our hearts, and it means in our world, and it means with our neighbors. There is a chance, I think, for God to do a lot of good in this time and through this time, but the roadmap isn't totally clear yet. One last thing, some of you probably read in the paper this morning, the county of Sonoma thinks they will open things up a little bit more this weekend to the same level that the state has articulated. So some restaurant changes, retail changes. It's not for sure yet, but probably this weekend. And it mentions small church gatherings as well. That's encouraging. However, we need to remember that the state's guidelines are not, you can gather the way you always did, just in smaller groups. Rather, any initial gatherings involve wearing masks and social distancing and hand cleaning and not singing and lots of cleaning of facility. So as I mentioned last week, our Cove leaders are looking at how we can proceed, what our next steps are. We're talking about some different configurations of small groups, whether that's in homes or at the Cove or both, and we'll have more on that soon, and hopefully some concrete things can happen in the next couple of weeks. So that's it from the backyard. Be well. As best you can in a pandemic, reach out. Who lives next door? Who walks down your street in the evening? Even show up for a peaceful rally. Remember that we are people of hope and God is at work. See you soon. God bless.